gone before I was up in the morning and not return until I was already asleep the same day. However, I will never forget those times when he sat on my bed and read to me. Some of my earliest memories are of my dad reading from a series of books we had in our home. My favorites were short stories. When we lived in France in the mid-1950s, my father found a book titled, for some reason it sticks in my mind, Swedish Fairy Tales. I don't know how many times he read stories from that book, but while I listened, I never interrupted him. I never anticipated what was coming, even if I knew the ending. I just wanted to hear him read that story to me. I listened to the last word until the story was over, or I was asleep, and it was an experience that I'll never forget. There's no doubt that he inspired me to focus on writing and to produce, so far at least, 2 complete published novels. Those many nights hearing my father read to me were the early inspiration for me to become a lifetime learner. Not all of the lessons were positive, however. My father knew that there were times when learning of another nature was called for. My preferred sport when I was growing up was basketball. I played organized ball in school right to the end of high school. During my senior year, at a different school from my previous 3 years, I went to 3 different high schools. I had a new coach and a new set of teammates. The coach was an older guy, and he didn't have the greatest reputation for producing winning teams. And maybe my brother remembered this. My brother, 7 years prior to that, had gone to the same high school, played for the same coach. And the coach never learned his name. He called my brother Charles. And I'm not kidding. The first time I showed up for practice, he asked me my name. I told him who I was. The first thing he said was, "How's your brother Charles?" Wow, that was a strange experience. And by the way, his nickname was the Duke because he looked like John Wayne. But a great basketball coach, he wasn't. After an embarrassing early loss in the season, the coach made a decision. The 4 seniors, including yours truly, were demoted to the bench so that younger players could gain experience and build for the future. The problem was, the coach kept things that way, even though we didn't win often, and in practice, the bench riders, including me, outshined the youngest players every time. It was frustrating to those of us with the experience and talent. My father attended one of those games, even though we both knew I would not get much playing time. During the game, he observed that the seniors were joking around and laughing on the bench while the team was losing, not exactly behaving like supportive teammates. When I got home that night, I found him waiting for me. My behavior was unacceptable, he pointed out. Good sportsmanship meant that even if things were not going my way, my commitment to and support of the team took preference over everything else. That was a rough time for me because I knew I should have been playing, but I also knew my father was absolutely right. I was on the team, I was wearing the uniform, and I represented my school. Whether or not I had the playing time I thought I deserved. I knew he was right, and I was wrong. And that was a very important lesson I learned. There's one more lesson I want to share with you. Anyone who ever heard my father speak in a formal setting knew he had the talent, training, and preparation of a first-class orator. There's no telling how many times he made speeches in his lifetime. But it didn't matter the size of the audience or the magnitude of the event. He always delivered the goods. Once, while living in Miami and working in the field of economic development, when I worked for the Beacon Council in Miami-Dade, Florida, I found that the tables were turned, and he sat in on one of my speeches. It was to a small group, but it was a formal setting. Later that day, I asked him, with some trepidation, what he thought of my speech. I enjoyed the content, and you did well, he said. There followed a short, painful silence, and I knew something else was coming. He said, however, Brian, do you realize you said about 50 times during your speech? I was stunned to hear him say that. Had I really done that? But I instantly knew what he was referring to. I had developed the habit of using one of those dreaded fillers that have become so common in America in recent decades. Those words or expressions such as, you know, I mean, like, and even, The problem, I realized, is that people don't even know they're using those fillers. And once that habit is established, it's a hard one to break. Well, after that brief conversation, I made a commitment to immediately stop using fillers. And today, I'm the person who notices when people overuse them. I think it has made an enormous difference in my life, in my profession, and in my communication skills that have made my career a better one, both in the business sector and now as a professor. There were many more lessons through the years, some of greater import and some of lesser. I doubt I ever thanked him enough for all of the lessons, both positive and negative. But I'm confident that he understood that often those lessons made an important difference in my life. In closing, I want to say to all of you young people here, and they're a pretty good number sitting over here, all mostly my relatives, that there are life lessons all around, and they are important. Pay attention to them, make them learning experiences, and they'll make you a better person, just as my father made me a much better person. My final thought, thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Brian. I'm not the college professor, I'm not quite as eloquent. I'll do the best job I can. I want to take you back to the second week in November of 1943. My father's out in California getting ready to ship out to the Pacific. My mother was very pregnant with a child. And he told me, he said, Martha, you know what week this is coming out, don't you? Marine Corps birthday is Wednesday, November 10th. My mother complied. That was the day I was born. November 10th, Wednesday, 1943. I knew something was in the wind. My mother got on a train with me about 10 days later, went all the way back to Richmond, Virginia. I didn't see my dad for over 2 years. And my grandmother, Bibi, said that it was a glorious day when my father pulled up a little taxi from taking the train from being at the war. She said he came in, gave my mother all kisses and just a wonderful reunion. Then he noticed that I hadn't had a haircut for 2 years. He took me immediately to Mr. Staples' barbershop and gave me my first hang tight. And I'm telling you, that's the way it's been pretty much for the last 73 years. So those are the things that sort of shape a lot to me about my father. And he is my father. It's just such a wonderful example he was to me. And you know, my father, because he was a logistician, you know that he liked to control things and make sure that everything was in the proper place. I used to tell him I was mostly an operator, G3 for most of my lieutenant colonel and colonel career. And he says, Steve, he said, just remember you operators, you're not going to be very successful unless I get the things you need to when you want them and where you want them. And I told him, I always used to go back to him and say, Dad, that's correct, but I'm the operator. When I want stuff, you better make sure it's there. And so we always had that conversation. I remember when I was a young teenager, I used to remember looking at my dad's shoes, how shiny they were. And I remember when I was about 13 years old, the first time my feet started to grow, I could wear his shoes. I talked him into one time. I said, Dad, I want to start wearing those shoes when they wear out. You know, his military shoes. He said, sure, I'll give them to you. I'll let you try them. And so I remember the first time he gave me a pair of his shoes, and I wore them for about a couple, 3 weeks. And then one day I was getting ready to go to school, and the shoes were not there, and I wondered, where are those shoes? So I went in looking that night, and I asked my dad, I said, Dad, I couldn't find your shoes. And here's one of the first lessons he told me, a Marine lesson. He said, Steve, if you don't shine them, you don't wear them. I learned to shine shoes. As a young man, my dad told me that was an important part of the look. Now, we're not going to take time today to tell you so many personal stories, but I do want to share a very personal story that my brother and I had with my father just before he passed away. He's been in and out of the hospital for quite a bit of time the last year. And I know for me, one of the greatest experiences I had in my whole life was to stand on Mount Suribachi with my father, to hold his hand, looking out on that beach yellow tube which he went across with his company, and to talk to him about the experiences he had. It was just a wonderful experience. When I had been with him for the last 10 days of his life, I called my brother and said, Brian, pack up your bags, we're going right back down to Tallahassee. Dad's not doing well. So we got in the car and drove down, got down there on Friday, the 17th. We got there at 11 o'clock. We were escorted into his room, 11 p.m. Here's my father sitting up in bed. He said, oh, you boys are finally here. Come sit down. And boy, I said, he has just looked vibrant. He said, Brian, get out a pencil and paper and start to take notes. He said, now listen to this. My dad talked to us for the next 40 minutes. He told us the things he would like for us to take care of. When he was getting ready to pass on, he knew it was coming shortly. So we had a great talk. And towards the end, I guess we're getting on towards midnight. I said, Daddy, I said, you know, you're going to be going soon to see your mom and dad and your dear Martha. I said, it's going to be so wonderful. It's going to be a great experience. It's going to be wonderful, Dad. These were the last formal words that he spoke to us. He said, Stevie, I don't know what it's like on the other side. I know what I hope it's like. He said, I'm a Marine. And he said, when I get over there, if I don't like it, I'm going to fight my way out of it. Yes, sir, Dad. That's exactly what he will be doing. I want to thank all of you so much for coming today. I was raised by goodly parents, a wonderful example to me. A lot like my sweetheart who raised my 8 children. I was gone a lot in my military career. My father was gone a lot too, but he was serving his country. And like my brother, I'd like to leave a couple words for my extended family. When you know the example that your grandfather, great-grandfather, and great-great-grandfather has set for you, I hope that you'll take some time in your life to do some of the things that he used to do. Serve those who were less fortunate than he did, and always looking up to serve his country. I know that every time I obtained command of Marines, from artillery battery in Okinawa to command of the 12th Marines in Okinawa, many years later, 3rd Marine Division, he said, Steve, he said, when you finish with your chain of command ceremony today, he said, every one of these Marines are going to know who you are. He said, your job is to know who they are. He was a great leader. I've got those wonderful letters he wrote to me every single time. They mean so much to me. Serve your country. Do everything you can to make friends of past enemies. Move forward to make this world better. And then we can all enjoy the peace and tranquility we all hope and pray for. I'm so thankful for your honored guest to be here today. And the best thing I can say, Semper Fi, Marine.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come with saddened hearts and also hearts of joy as we celebrate the life of our father and grandfather and great-grandfather and mentor and friend to so many, Lawrence Snowden. We're so thankful for all those that he has influenced, both in the core, United States, and especially Japan. We're so thankful that we're all able to come here and remember him and all those things he's done for us. We ask, Heavenly Father, that thou will help us all remember him and continue to make him proud by doing those things we saw him do, which is namely service. We ask that we will all be able to remember all those things and share with others those things that we learned, so that we may all better our lives and the lives of all of mankind. For he has had an impact on all of mankind. We ask that as we travel here, that we will travel in safety and that we will be able to remember today for the rest of our lives. We ask a special blessing to be on the Marine Corps, that as these trying times the world is seeing, that they will be able to have the God on their side, and that they will be able to make America proud by keeping us safe. We ask you to also be with those that are performing today's ceremonies, that they will be able to do it in safety. We say these things. We love thee, God. We love thee, Lawrence Snowden. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.